Welcome back to my official podcast channel. This is Gaurav, and today we will having this discussion on. Obviously, you got this news that England T20 World Cup team has been announced today. We will have this discussion on with one of my mate James Butler, who is all the way from England, and we will have this discussion on this T20 squad. We'll definitely ask him about was he surprised, was he expected that the team will remain this team will remain the same, obviously, according to his expectation. And we'll definitely have some of the discussion, which obviously he will not like about the fourth test match. And obviously, we will have some of the discussion about the fifth test match. So James Butler, welcome back to my show again. How are you,
Uh,
mate?
Good to see you, Gaurav. Yeah, I'm very good, thank you. Very good indeed. Best team won the fourth test match. Got no objections to that at all.
Yeah, you can't run away just by only one line. You can't run away. We'll definitely have a discussion on that.
That's a catch-all line. Job done. We move on.
Lucas, hope you are also fine.
Great. Just fantastic. No
So
pain
first of all,
whatsoever.
first of all, for the viewers, let me announce this the England team about the T20 World Cup squad. Ian Morgan will be the captain. Moeen Ali, Johnny Bastow, Sam Billings, Josh Butler, Sam Curran, Chris Jordan, Liam Livingstone, David Malan,
Uh,
Tymal Mills, Adil Rashid, Justin Roy, David Willey, Chris Vokes, and Mark Wood. So this is the team for the England T20 World Cup squad this year, which will be played in UAE. So James Butler, first question to you. Any surprises, or you were expecting this team?
Two people not on the list. I mean, there's three reserves as well that are travelling with the side: Tom Curran, Liam Dawson, and James Vince. And there's two people not mentioned in any of the lists. Saki Mahmood being one from Lancashire, and the other Lancastrian, Matt Parkinson, who is a very good T20 bowler as well. So, a bit surprised to not see them on any lists, reserve or otherwise. I know Saki Mahmood got a side strain when he was playing for Lancashire the other day. Yet to see an announcement as to how severe that was, but I've heard news kind of on the wires kind of thing that it's a little bit more serious than they were hoping. So maybe that's the reason that he's not been included. But I think Matt Parkinson's got to wonder what he's got to do, really. I'm surprised not to see him in there. And obviously, with it being in the UAE, spinners are going to play a part. We saw with the IPL and what have you, used tracks and stuff. I mean, I don't know how they're going to do it, if it's all going to be new tracks or used tracks. But regardless, spin will play a part.
Obviously, the pitches will remain slow because obviously the IPL will be happening, and after that, last year the IPL happened. The Sharjah ground, which is used to be very short ground, obviously you know that, and where you get to see a lot of sixes. And first, I'm telling you the scores in first 4 or 5 matches. There were like average score on that ground was 200. Okay, I'm talking about the last year IPL. And after 4 or 5 matches, the score which we used to get on the Sharjah was 140, 150. Just imagine on the short ground, on the Sharjah ground, which used to be the smallest ground in this UAE.
And Sharjah is a one-off as well, because if you look at the scores at Dubai and at Abu Dhabi, they were much smaller, weren't they?
Yes.
And they went down as well. So I don't think there's a lot of talk about obviously fours and sixes and what have you in T20. I don't think the UAE is necessarily the sexiest place in the world to play T20 cricket if all you're asking for is boundaries. But it does bring the bowlers in. And I actually think the matches that we saw in that edition of the IPL were really good. We had there were some one-sided. You're always going to get some one-sided in competitions, but there were some really close games.
Exactly.
And, so I think it's actually a really good venue for T20.
Yes. Hello, Anand. I'm talking about the another thing which I'm was very surprised with. I will tell you about the time about this team. Sorry, that I'm surprised with the Mills, Tamil Mills. Man, I thought once I wasn't hearing about Mills' name for 2 3 years. Obviously, once he told last time in if I'm not wrong in India, and after that I haven't heard any name of Tamil Mills. So I think, if I'm not wrong, has he bowled pretty well in this 100? Was it the reason that he has bowled brilliantly in the 100? That's why he has been included in the team. Because honestly, what I thought about the Tamil Miss, that he England team has given up on him, or he's not been playing cricket. That's what I thought about that Tamil Mills.
I mean, Timal's a really good bowler. He's been on my podcast actually. We had a long chat, and he's obviously a bowler who had some injuries, had to give up red ball cricket because he couldn't get through a red ball game, but can manage to kind of control his body through a 4-over spell. I mean, he's still only 29, Timal, and he's been seems to have been around a long time. And obviously played in the IPLs, played in the Big Bash. He's played for England, and I think with Jofra out, Jofra Archer not obviously figuring, Ben Stokes not there, but Jofra mainly in that he can bowl a very fast spell. Timel's can bowl 4 overs at a pretty decent lick. He's also gives you a little bit of variety in the fact that he's a left armer as well. So I've got he's been talked about a lot over here. Over the last few months, and I've got not surprised to see him in at all. I think he adds a little bit of difference to England's attack going into that World T20.
Yes, obviously he's been a brilliant bowler in this one. Once I saw him in this England, once in the Indian, once he was playing in India, and obviously I've seen some of his bowling once he was playing for RCB. Also, he was very good with the variation. You can't pick him the slow ones and all that. So that's why I was, and after that I haven't seen him for the England team. So that's why I was getting this thought that he has given up on the cricket and all this. So good luck. Obviously, England team looks much more balanced because you are getting some of the best bowlers, obviously, who can bowl brilliant overs in the death. Because obviously you have named about Ben Stokes would not be available, and one more thing, I think you're talking about. I'm forgetting his name, Jofra Archer. So Jofra Archer will not be also available. So how big a setback is this for England team? Are you expecting? You were expecting about that Ben Stokes will come back, because obviously Jofra Archer made it very clear that he will be coming back after March, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I think the news about Jofra's injury and what have you has been around for so long. Everybody's kind of just got used to the idea that he's not going to be taking part in the World Cup. Ben Stokes was always a kind of suck it and see. I mean, I still think there's although this is the provisional squad, they're able to make changes into October, I think it is. So if Ben Stokes
I think till I think you can change on 10th, if I'm not wrong.
On the 10th of.
I've not got the confirmation news of that, but what's the news about how many? What is the last date? If you can change any squad, any member of this squad in this team.
I thought it was into October, but I might be wrong on that. But that would give a little bit of wriggle room on Ben Stokes. But I think with Ben Stokes, they're just literally just letting him decide. He knows how he's fixed. And I think they're just kind of just waiting for him to feel better. That might be after the Ashes, even, you don't know. So, I mean, and to be honest, with Ben Stokes, I think we've seen the real impact of Ben Stokes missing from England's team during the Test series. But if you look at his records, his probably weakest format is T20. So
exactly. I'm very surprised. Sorry to interrupt you. I'm very surprised that he hasn't scored a T20 international 50 yet, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, and so I don't think it's a major setback for Owen Morgan. I think Ben Stokes is probably bigger around the team, as a person than actually his performances. So you look at that England squad. I think they've got cover for him. I've just seen that question that you flashed up on the screen about Hales. Hales is not. Hales is gone, isn't he? Hales is not going to get picked anymore. So. I think that's a kind of narrative that's kind of disappeared, really, because they're just not going to pick him. But Stokes is obviously a big miss. But I think Timal, Mark Wood will be the pace bowlers. You've got a few spinners in there. Liam Livingston, I think, will play, and he offers you some spin as well. So I think they're quite well catered for. I think the only other kind of debate was always about whether Joe Root would have come back into the equation for the T20s. I think there's big scope for having somebody like him at number 3 in the order to everybody else to back round. He goes at 120, 130, and everybody else goes quicker. You still build a very good
I
score.
think Joe Root, I think David Malan also doing that same kind of a role, which Joe Root would have been done, would have
Yeah,
been doing in this.
and the thing with David Milan as well is that he can accelerate and go a lot quicker later on in the innings too. So that probably covers Joe Root. And I think from a team England, looking at the entirety of England, it doesn't do England any harm to have Joe Root missing out on the T20. Chance to put his feet
Yes,
up and regroup.
yes, I do agree. And tell me about one thing, James. I think most of the team has started to pick a lot of spinner in this squad. And if I'm seeing this team, Moeen Ali is the a spinner and Adil Rashid. And I'm not seeing a lot of spinner in this team. I think obviously, if I'm not wrong, Liam Livingston also can roll his arm, but he's not a proper spinner, obviously. But there are
Well,
not a lot of spinner.
I think he'd take issue with you there, Gareth. I think he bowls very regularly in white ball cricket. He's bowled for England when he's played. He bowls regularly for Lancashire. He is
Okay.
he's a spinner. And what I think they'll do is they'll probably play all three of the guys you've mentioned. Excuse me. And Adil Rashid will be expected to bowl his 4 overs. You've got Moeen Ali, who will bowl at least 2. And then Liam Livingston
Yes.
at least 2. And then if you get any more out of Livingston and Moeen Ali, if it's their day, then all well and good. And the rest of them will be filled with the pace bowlers.
Okay, so tell me, James, one more thing about that, about this spinner issue. About I want to continue with that. That is there any spinner would have been playing in this your 100 or even in the county cricket who's very good with the white ball, or is there any two spinner in this team who's very good? Obviously, the Adil Rashid and Moeen Ali.
You've got obviously Matt Parkinson, who we talked about. Liam Dawson's on the reserve list.
Yes, I've seen him. I've seen him.
And,
Yes.
so that's he's there if they need him. I think the reserves travel with the team as well, so they can swap them around if there's any COVID problems and what have you. The reserves just jump straight into the main side. So if it's as I anticipate, I think the reserves are probably just as much a part of the squad as the main guys. Really, it's just kind of slightly extended squad, isn't it?
You are talking about this reserve and standby players. I'm talking about Indian squad. Shardul Thakur has taken a lot of wickets in this T20 for the past 2 or 3 years, and he is a standby player for the Indian team in this T20 World Cup squad. So just imagine about the standby players and all this. So one more thing about this squad. That there are obviously a lot of fast bowlers in this team that makes very special, and David Willey. So David Willey is also playing. So David Willey was your part of this playing top 15 once you made your squad.
I think David Willey is perpetually on the edges of squads, and he fell foul in the 2019 World Cup, and he was probably the man to make way for Jofra Archer at the last moment in that squad.
Yes.
And I know he was devastated by that. He was took that really hard. Has fought his way back into the white ball side, and during this English summer, he's played in all of the white ball matches for England. And I can remember saying on commentary, I hope it's not going to be a case of he plays in all of the games in the run up to the World Cup, and then he's the one left out of the squad again. So I'm really pleased for him that he's found himself in that squad. He's a very good.
He's a very
bowler.
Good he's a very good batsman also.
Yeah, exactly.
He
can hit a big ball as well. So I think he fully deserves his place in that side. And the criticism of David Willey is sometimes that when the ball's new, he gets a little bit of swing. When it's older, he maybe looks a little bit more ordinary. But I think he's well worth his place in that 15.
You have got one very special question about this. What about Plunkett? He's a very good limited bowler too, but I think he was hard done. England have moved on from Liam Plunkett, and I think if I'm not wrong, he's moving to play cricket in USA.
Yeah, I mean Liam's. He's had a terrific career, and he's had kind of like almost 2 careers. He kind of moved to Yorkshire when his career at Durham was falling through the floorboards. He'd already had a stint with England at that stage. Moved to Yorkshire, got himself back on track with the ball, and got himself back into the England team and won the World Cup. So yeah, he's had a terrific career. His other half lives in America, so he spends and what time when he's not in England, he spends over there in America with her. So I think he's now realizing that probably his time with England's over. He's kind of clocking on the years, and he's going to go over there and play in America and live with his missus. So happy days and good luck to him.
Final question on this T20 World Cup squad before we will move to the Test series. Tell me one thing. We have seen how Moeen Ali has been batting at number 3. Obviously, he has been batting at number 3 in this white ball format for his county team. If I'm not wrong, he has started batting at number 3 in for the CSK also, which obviously he will be playing to this year also. So, is there any chance that Moeen Ali will move up to the number 3 position in T20 World Cup, or will team will back David Malan to bat at number 3? Obviously, he is a number 1 T20 batsman.
I can't see there being too many changes. England's, Owen Morgan and the England camp are very regimented and very well prepared for major tournaments. You can see in the way they've kind of moulded and blended that squad in the run up to the tournament, how they are planning to play in that tournament. They kind of got themselves on that track, and it would take an injury, I think, or something else for that to change. I think David Malan will start that tournament at number 3, and Moeen Ali will come in further down.
Okay. Lucas, you want to ask, obviously you want to ask about anything about this T20 World Cup squad?
No, yeah, you can move on to the Test team. So,
okay. Yeah. Yes, I think that will be a better topic for you also, because you will be asking on the Test team. So we'll start from the 4th Test.
I thought we've done that.
Obviously, no. I will.
Please don't make me laugh. It hurts.
I think. If you remember, James, I think I told you once I was done the last show with you. I told you hopefully we will meet next time, and we will and I will be 2-1 up in the series. So I finally got that. So
Gaurav, I didn't see you out there, mate. Were you playing when you say that I would be 2-1 up?
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all.
He was just Tavo in disguise.
Okay, so tell me about this Test match. What led, according to you, what where you were what you were disappointed from England team, according to you, in this 4th Test match? Was it a 5th day batting which disappointed you the most? Was it the bowling on the 3rd or 4th day which disappointed you most? What is the biggest disappointment after seeing this 4th Test match, according to you? For England, I'm just England.
I think England have actually done quite well this series to stay with India. I think India are the best side. Man for man, going down 1-11. Probably only Joe Root and Jimmy Anderson, maybe Ollie Robinson on the performances this summer would get into a blended side. So I think England have done quite well. I think England during this test series, they completely ruled the roost at Headingley. I know you don't like mentioning that Test match, but they controlled all of the play in that Test match. And in the other Test matches, it's been really close, hasn't it? And there's been sessions that England have won. There's been sessions that India have won. But it tends to be that India have won the key moments in the matches. They've put their foot down when it really matters. And England had a few chances in that Test match at the Oval. They should have got more runs with the bat in the first innings. They needed to get a bigger lead. And basically that scoreboard pressure then would have told, I think, on Rohit and a few others at the top of the Indian order. I think with the lead that they had, Rohit came out and batted beautifully, and India managed to get a lead. But even during that innings, when Rishabh Pant came together with Lord Thakur, and they weren't that far ahead at that stage. Maybe 200.
I think they both were batting at 37, and England. I think Moeen Ali missed the simple run-out chance, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah,
that was a big moment on the game.
When they came together, they were only about 200 ahead, and 200 I think was 200 would have been a tough chase, but 200 was manageable. But the fact that those two stayed together and added all of those runs, that just took the game away from England.
Yes, and one more thing about this that Test match, which I wanted to ask about that. I have seen a lot of interviews about this former ex-captain and the ex-England players. They are saying, and they have this one point, and I want to take a review on that also from you, that they are saying that England, once it's like a one-sided match, they are very good with that. But once there is a crunch match where they need to fight back, they are lacking just because they are having only two players in the squad who is a fighter is obviously the Joe Root and the Anderson. The main players are missing, so they are not playing up to the standard which I think you have seen in the Lord's Test match where England have won four I think 4 days, and on the final day they have completely lost the plot. Same goes with in the fourth Test match. So, what your thought on that point of view, which England Express are saying that England can't able to perform on the tough situations. They can't win the sessions on the tough situations.
I always, it always makes me laugh a little bit when ex-players lay into the current side, because
Yeah.
it almost like, oh, we were better than you kind of thing, isn't it? And there is an element of that, I think, sometimes, but I mean, they have been weak at times. England, I think they, like I say, in the key moments of this series, when it really matters
Yes.
and when they have to be ruthless,
Yeah.
they haven't been at times, and it's allowed India either off the hook or allowed India to get further ahead. I,
Yes.
I I always think with England that they are not very good after they've just won. They seem to they come away from a
Okay.
win and go into the next match and maybe aren't quite as ruthless because I don't know if they're resting on their laurels or whether it's just subconsciously. I don't know how it works, but I always think England are most to be feared after they've just lost, because
Yeah.
when they get slated in the press and when all of their interviews are, well, what did that happen and why did that go wrong? They seem to have this
Yes.
kind of like war spirit where they kind of back each other and get together and come out to prove people wrong. And you want to be able to transplant that same kind of spirit into them, regardless of whether they're ahead or behind. But it only seems to come out really when they're behind.
Yeah. In
Yes.
in
Look at that.
2019, the Headingley Test match, that's another great example when they won that match, and I thought, well, they're just going to win the next test easily, and then they came out very flat, and they were very disappointing in that test match, and obviously they lost the Ashes in that test. They lost the that series in that test match. So you are right there that after a win, and that was a massive win. That was probably one of their best wins in
Yeah.
years and years.
And it should have been a win, Lucas, as well, that had
Yeah.
Australia on the floor and England
Yeah.
walking all over them. That's how it should have been, but it wasn't that at all.
During that, after that test, I made regular posts saying we've just blown it again. We're not going to win a series there. We've lost the Ashes, and in England that test match were very flat, extremely flat. And
it's almost like they need a coach that just basically tells them they're rubbish all the time, or puts up negative press cuttings or something, because it only seems to be when they're kind of a bit down and have kind of received a bit of a kicking from social media and the press that they actually turn around and really come out all guns blazing. Whereas you want to see that kind of same fight. And I mean, I'm hoping, we haven't actually got to the stage of saying, should this fifth test go ahead yet? Because there's major doubts over the fifth test. But should the fifth test go ahead, I'm hoping that England pick a team which is attacking and they go for it, because there's no second prizes in a test series. If they've got to beat India to level the series. And if they don't pick two spinners and if they don't really go for it, I'll be really disappointed.
Yeah, I just want to mention
And
that.
tell me one thing. Lucas, go ahead.
Yeah. Will England be, if they manage to win this test match and draw the series, will that be good enough, or will that be another missed opportunity missed?
I think for England it'll be quite a result, actually.
Okay.
I think if they level the series, I think for England it'll be a better result than India. I
Okay.
think India have set their sights on coming to England since Virat Kohli's taken over, and he has always earmarked success in England, winning a Test series in England, as being one of his kind of wish list, to-do list, or whatever. I think for England, knowing how strong India is at the moment, knowing that they're without Ben Stokes, Stuart Broad, they've missed Jofra Archer, they've had Chris Wokes for only half of the summer. Excuse me, they've had a lot of players missing, and I think if England could bounce back, take the fifth test, and level it at 2-2 after all of those injury problems and some of the setbacks they've experienced in the series, I think that actually be a plus.
Is any of the domestic players that have caught your eye in the latest round of county cricket?
Got his name.
I'll let you think of that. You mentioned Mahmood, wasn't it? Mahmood.
Yeah, he got a side strain.
Yeah,
so unfortunately,
he did. I know a journalist, or not a journalist, but a woman that is very close to Nottinghamshire, and she said he did not bowl the second innings of
he,
Knott's second innings.
He walked midway off his
Yeah.
off the first Knott's innings, I think, and never
Yeah.
reappeared. And I think, from what I hear, it's actually it's not that great for him. It might actually see him missing the Ashes tour, which I think will be a real shame because he's one of the players that I think should be on that plane this winter. So that'd be a real sad blow for Saqib Mahmood if he is ruled out of any of the winter's efforts. I mean, obviously, as we've just spoken about, he's not in the T20 squad, which I'd have put him in that. And I can only assume that is because of the injury situation rather than because of his form, because he's been a big player for England this summer and over the last year. He seems to have gone up a level, seems to have kind of grown into the shirt and been a real star for England in white ball. So I'd have been, he'd have been inked in on my 15 for the World Cup anyway. Josh Bohannon of Lancashire is a good batsman. I like him. I mean, we've mentioned Tom Abel before, but I mean, one of the people I think is the star of the summer and you mentioned him on the last time we spoke, I think it was Luke Fletcher. He's I saw Notts put out a nice little video of him the other day, all of his wickets for the championship season.
Yeah. I think he just took 400, didn't he? 400 wickets,
which is a pretty decent effort, isn't it? And he's had a terrific summer. So, for Luke, I think it's probably I don't think he's going to get picked by England, but he's certainly having a really good time with the county.
Well, I saw his stats. I think he's averaging over 50 wickets at 13. That's just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah,
do you think he should? Do you think he deserves to play at least one Test match?
I don't think you can say that, can you? You can't say it's like Darren Stevens, isn't it? I think everybody would like to see Darren Stevens getting at least one Test match, but you can't really give somebody one cap. You don't get international caps, but out of charity, do you? You've got to earn it. And, but I mean, both Luke and Darren are terrific county players, and there's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to be an England player or an Indian player to be, to go down as a terrific cricketer. You can be a terrific servant for your county. Take a load of wickets in first-class cricket, and you can still retire, put your feet up, and be very happy with life. I think.
I know. I keep mentioning this with the players' wives not going to Australia, but yet we still haven't got an issue. We haven't still got an answer yet. What? Instead of going back to will it happen or not? I'll give you a scenario. What's more likely to happen? England pull out or England send a B team?
Ooh. I mean, I saw Lucas the other day. The Cricket Australia, wasn't it, announced that they wanted to have full houses for the Boxing Day test and the first test in January, which I find that quite surprising. When you
ain't gonna happen.
How does that gel? When you're saying, you can't bring your wives and girlfriends and you can't bring a full party, but we're going to have full houses in the stadium. That doesn't make sense to me.
Yep.
So that seems to be more PR than anything else. It's kind of like a wish list of something that's probably not going to happen, like you say. I think if it comes to it, I don't know. I think somehow they will find a way of making it happen. I just can't see them not doing that. But then how can they? Because it's flouting the rules for everybody else, isn't it? And I think your scenarios there, I think a very much reduced team might be a potential. From what I gather, they've talked about it being unlikely impossible almost that they can't delay it for a year because all of the TV deals are in place and all of the money is kind of swilling into the coffers at this time and probably wouldn't be repeatable in a year's time. So it would be a case of doing it now or never. And never's not an option, is it? Because you need to have the Ashes play because it's so vital for both sides.
It's so prestigious, yeah.
Well, I think a reduced side would be probably the way forward.
Yeah, my point was that is because with players like Joe Root, experienced players, they want their families. But if you're picking a B side or an unexperienced side that have never played a Test match, they'll probably sacrifice that because they know that they'll probably never represent England again.
You saw the second team that played the ODIs against Pakistan.
Yeah,
and they did really well because it was it was their opportunity. There was, they took it with both hands, and I don't think anybody in that series did themselves any harm. England England will know that if they have any injury problems in the future, or if they're looking for somebody else in the future, there are a few players from that series that have done themselves, waved at the selectors and said, "I'm ready. I can play for you." And it'd be a massive opportunity. Yeah, you imagine somebody like a Tom Abel or a Josh Bohannon or any of the players that have done well in county cricket.
You might get Darren Stevens and Luke Fletcher to play a test after all.
I mean, that'd be great, wouldn't it? Announce Darren Stevens as captain. Get him as captain, and we have Luke Fletcher as his vice captain.
Well, that would absolutely. Well, he's a bit of a cult hero, Stevens, isn't he? Because he's played cricket for a long, long time.
Yeah,
and a very respectable career as well.
3 centuries this first class summer, more than anybody else in the county.
40.
Scene. He keeps taking wickets after wicket after wicket, and he's a terrific bloke. He's been on my podcast a couple of times, and he's a really good bloke. And I don't think he's got any realistic aspirations of playing for England. But I'll tell you what, if they did announce him, if it was a B team and they wanted a couple of senior guys in there just to kind of like add a little bit of maturity to that dressing room, you could do a lot worse.
Absolutely. Well, you might have one chance in the first test, because I don't know if you noticed, Australia and Afghanistan matches pulled out.
Yeah.
That's a real pity, because
Lucas, I totally applaud their reasoning for it.
Yeah,
they're basically saying because of the fact that the women aren't playing in Afghanistan anymore. We all know what's happening with the Taliban; it's horrendous. And they basically said, if that's going to be the case, we're not going to go. But don't you think it's? I mean, and I applaud that 100%.
Yeah,
but it does feel like they've been waiting for an excuse.
Well, that's my point. They did that in South Africa. They did that against Bangladesh because they got teared up last time they went there. So my issue is that I don't think you mix politics in sport, and I think Cricket Australia does too much of that, in my opinion. Now, Afghanistan have amazing players like Rashid Khan. Probably one of their best players. Probably would have played in this Test match. He would have probably loved, because he plays for the Adelaide Strikers. He would have loved to play a Test match in Australia, since he plays in the Big Bash League. So players like that who probably only play one Test every 3 years. Brendan Taylor of Zimbabwe. He's got a brilliant average as a Test match player. Only has played only a handful of Test matches. So it is a real shame that these players, can't get opportunities.
I think I was looking at it the other day. It's 18 years since England played Zimbabwe. England has not yet played Afghanistan. And yet we're seeing New Zealand coming across to England again next summer for the second summer running. We seem to, it's the first summer for about 7 years that Pakistan aren't coming across to play in England next in the summer of 2022. So it's obviously money, isn't it? It's money. TV. It's what the TV viewers want to watch, and it's what the TV production crews decide is what is going to be most sellable, and they get the advertising off the back of it, all the rest of it. So it's all down to cash. And you can sell an Ashes series or a series against India to far more ticket buyers and to far more TV watchers than you can sell a series against Afghanistan or Zimbabwe. That's obvious, but you've got to look about what the playing field across the world is, and you've got to look after some of the smaller nations.
Well, I said to you this before. Playing in Ashes every year would devalue the prestigious series. It deserves to be only on 3 to 4 years.
Well, it's like the Olympics, isn't it? The Olympics comes around once every 4 years, and because of that, it actually really matters. When you actually finally get to it, it really matters. I would take issue with one thing you said, though. I know that we don't like to mix sport with politics, but I think it's unavoidable. If you've got
no, I agree with that.
Yeah, if you've got situations like in Afghanistan and stuff like that, I think Australia have been waiting for a reason, but I think this reason is very valid.
Yeah,
yes,
I agree with that.
I appreciate Australian cricket for that. They have taken a right stand for that, and obviously, I know they will be they will not be able to get this chance to play before the Ashes, but I think they have done a right decision.
That's why I'm saying 1-0 already, James. 1-0 already to you.
Yes. Okay.
I don't like it at all. I don't like it at all, but that's the way it is, unfortunately.
Okay, so coming back to the India versus England series, let's discuss. We will not discuss more about this four test match. Let's move to the fifth and final test match. What is the update on the final test match, James? What is happening in Manchester right now? Will be test match played tomorrow? What will happen? What is current status now? Tell me everything about this fifth and final test match.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of go back over the history of it. Three coaches from the Indian camp tested positive. Well, Ravi Shastri tested positive for COVID. Two other coaches isolated
Yes,
off the back of that. So they, for the last 2 days, I think it was, at the Oval, were back in their hotel rooms or whatever, watching it on the TV. Since
yes,
then, the physiotherapist, the second physio, I think, has
yes,
tested positive. He went to training on Wednesday, felt a little bit poorly afterwards, took a COVID test, was positive, and is now obviously isolating himself because he's COVID positive. So that's the fourth member of the Indian side who are either being in close proximity to. But I mean, the danger with the physio is that he's been treating half of the team. Yeah, you've got Rohit Sharma, Cheteshwar Pujara, who sustained niggles and injuries in the last Test match. Presumably, he's had his hands all over them and been breathing all over them. You've got the Mohammed Shami and some of the other guys that are coming back into the equation. He's been doing the same with them as well, because that's his job. You know, his job is to manipulate and get close to these guys and get them better. So it's a concern, isn't it? I think the rest of the team has taken another test. I think they've already done around the tests a couple of days ago, but they've taken another set of tests today. I think we find out the results a bit later on or tomorrow morning to find out whether if any, because I mean there are massive repercussions, Gaurav. If I mean,
yes.
obviously coaches are bad enough, but if a player goes down with it, then you
No.
start to think, well, the Test match is probably off, because
Yes.
I don't think you can go ahead with the Test match when a team is
No.
kind of getting COVID positive tests throughout the squad,
No.
because
Not
they're,
at
they're
all.
mingling, they're talking to each other. You know, it's going to be passed around. I mean, and there's a knock-on effect of all of this, Gaurav, as well, because India are scheduled to fly out of England on the 15th of September to go home. The IPL, or to go to the UAE rather, and the IPL starts in the UAE on the 19th of September. Now,
19th of September.
if you get I mean, let's go for a high-profile player just to kind of like underline the
Yes.
significance. Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli test positive now for COVID. They're not going to be allowed to fly, so they're not going to be
No.
back. They're not going to be back for the IPL. And if half of the squad, I mean,
No.
there's some big profile IPL players in this Indian Test side. You've got KL Rahul,
Yes.
you got Rohit, you've got
Just
Jasprit Bumrah, you've got there's a whole half of
yes.
this Test squad are IPL stars. So it kind of starts to call into question whether the IPL would start on time. But there's no window to actually move the IPL again, because they shoehorned the
No,
IPL
not at all.
into the
Not
UAE
at all.
ahead of the World T20
Yes.
Cup. So effectively, the
Yes.
IPL would have to start without some of its biggest stars, which would be a major kick in the teeth for that competition.
Yes.
So fingers crossed there aren't any other positive tests in the Indian dressing room, and then we start tomorrow and everything goes through okay, and nobody else comes down with a positive test. But I think if we start to see more positive tests, we might not get a test match.
Okay, tell me one thing. I need to clear out on these things, because if just imagine if everything goes okay, all the test becomes negative, comes negative, then the test match will start tomorrow with no other issues. And obviously, the coaches, the coach who got the physio got COVID positive. I think that he will be in the isolation. Okay. And
Yeah.
if I'm not wrong, if any bad news comes in, and if any player got positive, so we will not be expecting any test tomorrow, isn't it?
I can't see how they can. I mean, they've had meetings.
Yes.
As I understand it, India have already made some suggestions that the test should be called off anyway, because they
Yes.
are BCCI and Saurav Ganguly have got more than one eye on the IPL, and they're thinking
Yes.
we want to get people home and get this IPL started on time. And the
Yes.
fifth test
Yes.
match can kind of like fifth test match is less important to the BCCI than the IPL ending in the UAE. So I think the beast. I don't think the India.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. I don't necessarily agree with it, but
There is nothing.
I don't
James, there
think.
is nothing wrong about that. there is nothing wrong
Of
about
course
that,
there
because
is.
obviously
No, there is, Gareth.
if,
There is massive stuff wrong with that, because you're putting a
yeah,
domestic tournament ahead of an
Yeah.
international competition. You've played 4 test matches. You've got a deciding test match, and if you go home because you're protecting your domestic league above the internationals, that sends out completely the wrong message to the
Yeah.
game. I love the
yes, I
IPL.
do agree.
I love the
I
IPL, and I want the IPL to finish, and I want it to finish in style. But it's not more important than Test cricket.
Yeah,
I do agree, but
like I've said with test players, I don't care if you're Steve Smith, heaven forbid Don Bradman, Ricky Ponting, Shane Warne. If you pick IPL over your country, you should never play for your country again. That's where I stand on that.
okay. Okay, and I have a one point on that, because if just imagine if any we got some of the bad news which coming from Indian team. Obviously, if any player got positive, and obviously you can't go ahead with the test matches, and obviously in this tough times, obviously once you seen that bio bubble breaches, and the tour get over automatically. It's not only about the leagues and all that. The tour get over automatically once there is a positive, any player got COVID positive, the tour got automatically suspended. So there is nothing wrong about that. I have seen many times in this COVID times.
Yeah, and obviously, if a member of the Indian side goes down, I don't think there's any way you can
Yes,
play the Test match. I just think the
yes,
BCCI making moves yesterday to suggest that they need to go home is putting the IPL ahead of the Test match, and that's where it didn't quite sit right with me. But I've got no issue with
yes. I am
I've
also
got
not
no
okay
issue
with
with the
that.
fifth Test match being called
Yes,
off if there is a reason for that to
Yeah.
happen.
yes,
But
yes,
I
yes.
think as well, though, the I mean, it'd be such a shame for this series because it's been a terrific series,
Obviously,
Unbelievable. Yeah.
obviously, obviously.
it deserves to have a full stop. Whether
Yeah,
that's
it
India
does.
winning it 3-1, whether it's finishing 2-2,
Whatever.
whether
Yeah.
or whatever, it deserves to have the Old Trafford finale, and it'd be a real shame.
Yes,
And I'm glad
yes,
this is a 5th test match. I'm glad this is a
yes,
five
yes,
test series.
yes.
I mean,
And
from that perspective, Lee, because I
Lucas,
mean, effectively, the ECB, if it is to kind of fall on because of COVID now, the ECB has kind of got away with it a little bit. Because if this had been in the second Test match or something, and it had jeopardised the entire series, then all of those deals and all of those things would have gone down. You can probably wriggle your way out of it now, can't you? At the end of the
Yeah.
series.
yes, I have one point to make, because I am also not been this kind of a fan that if you would choose a domestic league or anything ever above international league. I am also not been a biggest fan of that. But the problem is that, because I have seen many times that the tour get over once there is any COVID situation or any bio bubble breach during this time. So that's what I wanted. That's what my point was.
Yeah,
And
but
if BCCI is planning.
Gaurav. They didn't postpone the IPL when there were positive tests just before it, though. This year, did they? They didn't postpone the IPL when there were people dying in the streets outside of the stadiums when it was playing the first incarnation of it. The IPL seems to be the one thing they want to complete because it's all about the cash, isn't it? I mean, as I say, I love the IPL. I think the games are brilliant, but it is all about the Wonga.
Yes, yes, and obviously, and there is nothing wrong, because the IPL cover a lot of things, because the money give you the domestic cricket infrastructure, and the players got a lot of money. So there is nothing wrong, which I can say that IPL should go ahead. And you're talking about this the people were dying in this time once the once the IPL started, there were lot of COVID situation or problem on that time. Okay, but once the IPL started, and after 1 or 2 weeks, the situation got really worse in India.
Yeah.
So once the IPL started, there were not serious situations. So if there were a serious situation before that, we can understand that IPL shouldn't have started. But the problem started once IPL started, and after 2 weeks, people obviously there were a lot of different situations in India that happened during that time. So that's my one point which I wanted to make.
I
Gee, I'm
totally
glad
agree.
I brought this up.
I totally agree with everything you just said, Gareth. By the way, but I think from an Indian perspective, it's the showpiece. It's the one. It's the main jewel in the crown. It's the thing that makes all the cash. It's the thing that builds stars. It takes
Yes,
people from villages and makes them into superstars. I think from
Yes.
overseas, Lucas might see it from the same way from an Australian side of things. A lot of people in England, a lot of people in around the world see it as something that's compete. Maybe not in Australia because it's the English domestic season that's probably the hit the most. But I know a lot of people
Yes.
in England see it's something that's taking their players away from the national team. Josh Butler and Ben
Yes.
Stokes, who often
Yes.
play for the Rajasthan Royals, when
Yes.
England have got 2 Test matches against New Zealand, etc. So
Yes.
that to me is wrong. I mean, the ECB have have kind of bent over a little bit in terms of giving the players a little bit to then take it back in a different way, and that's fine because I've got nothing against the players going and making a lot of cash if their talents deserve it. That's
their
brilliant.
problem. Yeah,
but
yeah.
it just doesn't quite sit right with me when you start putting a domestic tournament, which is what the IPL is. It might be a global competition, but it's a domestic.
Obviously.
It's a domestic
Obviously.
tournament, and that should come secondary to international cricket.
Yeah, just like the
And one
100.
more thing. Yes, and one more thing which I want to make. If BCCI, as I said it earlier, BCCI is planning to move their place without the obviously which COVID test which will be happening. That's wrong. They need to wait for the results that once there will be a test, more test which will be happening in this fifth test before the fifth test match. They need to wait for that. And if there is a bad news, after that they can take their decision. They can shut this tour off, which is very fine. But before that, I'm not agree with that.
Let me ask you a question, Gaurav, because I think that the bottom line here is COVID-19 is not something to be messed with, and you
No.
look after everybody in that squad and make
Yes.
sure they're all safe and as many people negative as possible. But if from an IPL standpoint, if on the 15th of September, when that plane is leaving Heathrow Airport or wherever it is to go back to play heading in your direction in the IPL, and Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli, and Jasprit Bumrah aren't able to board it because they are isolating because they've been either in close proximity to or have tested positive for COVID. How are India? How are the BCCI? How is the IPL going to respond to that?
I think they have made all the arrangements, and I think the IPL will go ahead if Rohit Sharma or any Indian player will get positive. It doesn't matter. I think IPL will get ahead because they have because they are obviously there are a lot of money things which obviously everybody knows. But one more thing is that the T20 World Cup will be happening in this UAE, and it's like a practice game for all the other players and other players who will be participating in this IPL. So I think the tour, the IPL will not be getting cancelled. I think I have got the one question.
And I believe that, by the way.
Yes. Do you think England should have made someone else the captain, as Morgan is not playing well as a batsman this whole year?
It's an interesting question. He's by far the most capped, the most runned white ball player that England have produced. He's very much in charge of that team in terms of who's the captain. There's no doubt about it with that 11. Owen Morgan is leading it. But he's obviously going to have to score some runs because as a captain, you need to have. I think he's got validity regardless. I think he could get a duck in every innings through the World T20, and the players would still respect him.
But, yes, obviously.
But just from a personal point of view, if you're the captain, you want to feel that you are contributing with your skill, and so I think it's important for Owen Morgan that he gets some runs as well. But there's no doubt he starts that tournament as captain and will end the tournament as captain.
Yes, hopefully, this is a proper sledge. I think India is winning this T20 World Cup. Hopefully. Okay, one more thing about this Ian Morgan issue. I want to make it because if I'm not if I'm not wrong, James, I think the one inning which he played in 2019 World Cup against Afghanistan, where he smashed, I think, 10 or 12 sixes against Rashid Khan, if I'm not wrong. After that, he hasn't been up to the mark.
No. And even in the IPL, he was a little bit missing at times, wasn't he, for KKR? So I think, whether he's just getting on a bit, he's not a spring chicken anymore. Maybe he's losing something from his game. When he's on form, he's as good as anybody.
Yes, I do agree.
Yeah, the wrist speed through the ball and some of the shots he can play, very few people in the world can play like that.
Yes.
So he's an important cog for England. But I think just the way he controls that white ball side and the way he captains it is crucial. I mean, obviously he won the 2019 World Cup with England. Looking to add the other piece of the silverware to get the set now, isn't he? To try and get the T20 version of it too. So, I mean, I obviously wish him luck from my perspective, but it's not going to be easy because there's a lot of teams in that can win it. I think you go into that competition with probably 5 or 6 teams that could realistically lift the trophy, and maybe you could make an argument for some of the others as well. So, it's not going to be an easy competition to win.
No, not at all. Because obviously the pitches will get slow. Pitches will get slow, and the team which had a proper spinner will get a lot of benefit. Lucas, you want to ask something?
Yeah, I just have one final question here. Obviously, Australia, the Afghanistan match is over, and Australia have only played one Test match since January. In fact, James, Steve Smith has only played 13 Test matches in 3 years.
I think he was banned for 1 year, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, of course, yeah. But a player
so some of that was his fault, wasn't it?
Yeah. But I suggested this to the ICC. I said that maybe they should get in the Netherlands as a test, bring Netherlands in as a ICC test status, and get them to play Australia in a once-off test match, pre-map for the Ashes. I think that'd be a historic for Netherlands cricket. Do you agree with that?
I wouldn't have any qualms about that. Really, some good players in that Netherlands side these days. Obviously, Ireland could form a similar kind of side.
I consider, but I don't think Ireland would come all the way to Australia, have to quarantine for one test match. Now, I know they did that in 2019 to pre-tune up England after the World Cup, and they rolled England in the first innings, was like 70. But I doubtful a Bangladesh or a Zimbabwe or an Ireland would come all the way here just to, because they would, the test was going to happen in November, and no matter what state you're in, you have to quarantine for 12 days. So Afghanistan, even though they would have went to Tasmania and that's COVID free, the policy is 12 days mandatory quarantine. I just don't think those countries would quarantine. But if you get someone like in Netherlands and get them to play a historic first test match, I think they would do that compared to the other nations.
It's difficult at the moment, isn't it? With the kind of limitations on world travel, the fact you've got to isolate and quarantine and all, everything that's going on around the world. The fact that a lot of teams that usually have Lions or A teams or whatever going off and getting experience aren't being able to do that either. It is hamstringing the game massively, isn't it? So hopefully we'll get back to some kind of normality pretty soon. But I think for this winter, it's. I mean, it's all we don't know, do we? I mean, the Ashes, everything is all up in the air at the moment. We have got that. It's such. I mean, in the same way, I'm accusing Gaurav and Saurav Ganguly of kind of like prioritising the IPL. These ECB and Cricket Australia will be doing exactly the same thing for this Ashes series. Don't make no mistake.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad England can play 5 Test matches in a row, unlike us. So they've got that ahead of us. That's why I'm guaranteed there will be flat as an absolute tack come that first Test match. If I was England, I'd bowl because Australia will be very, very vulnerable. I guarantee you that. We could get rolled for less than 100, even with Steve Smith, Warner, Labuschagne and all that. We'll be very vulnerable. I'm telling you right now.
You heard it here first. Ashley Giles, if you're watching.
James, Lucas, for the first time, Lucas has told you that you have a very good chance of the first test match, because earlier it used to be once India beaten England in the Lord's test match, he started saying 5-0, mate, 5-0. Well, he always started 5-0.
I think on the last, he did say that if you haven't won any of the ones in the first 2, it could easily be 5-0 because you're not going to win you're not going to win 3, 4, and 5. So he's starting to come around. He's starting to see the light.
I think they got a very good chance of winning that first test. A very good chance.
We'll see. Okay, so I think we are done for today. We have yes, hopefully we are done for today because I think we have got some lot of sledges today. I got a lot of sledge, obviously, but
We haven't
totally
started
enjoyed.
yet, Gaurav. We haven't started. We got another hour to go yet.
Well, it was entertaining for me. I found it very entertaining.
Yes, obviously.
I was just sitting there being.
I also enjoyed.
I
Obviously,
just
once
said that
James
one
Butler comes
question
in,
and it all went off.
yes, James Butler. Once James Butler comes in, we really enjoy his company
Yeah, we
because
do. Yeah, we actually do. Yeah.
and we obviously James Butler has obviously his podcast, but we always expect that he could come on the once the test match is going on the any day's play or even after, but he's obviously his podcast obviously, and where he does his show, so we respect that. That's why we call him after the test match
Yeah.
finishes. So I think we really interest.
Well, I wouldn't mind getting the guests that he gets. That'd be great. So if you give us a plug there, James, that would be really good.
This kind of things you don't need to say on the live. You don't need to say on this live. Okay, thank you, James.
Not trying to take away your competition. Not trying to be the competition, but just saying.
Thank you, James. But it was a pleasure talking to you. Hope you have enjoyed our show today a lot.
Thank you for coming.
Gaurav, Lucas, it's always a pleasure. Thank you.
Always. Thank you.
So, okay. Thank you. It's done for the today. I think we will meet tomorrow. But if hopefully the test match finishes, test match starts, and we will get to see this fifth test match, because obviously it has been a remarkable series and we have enjoyed a lot. And so till then, do like the video, do subscribe it, and hit the bell icon to get all this news about the cricket. Till then, bye guys. Good night. Take care.
No, guys.
Hopefully we will